like leaving you here?
Well, she asked me straight about your phone.
Hello. Welcome to Fireside Tales. I'm your host, Evan Matheny, and today we will be reading from the Brothers Grimm Complete Collection of Fairy Tales. Our first story, number 12, Rapunzel. There were once a man and a woman who had long in vain wished for a child. At length, the woman hoped that God was about to grant her desire. These people had a little window at the back of their house from which a splendid garden could be seen, which was full of the most beautiful flowers and herbs. It was, however, surrounded by a high wall, and no one dared to go into it because it belonged to an enchantress named Dame Gothel, who had great power and was dreaded by all the world. One day, the woman was standing by this window and looking down into the garden. Uh-oh. No, it's audio capture. I appreciate the worry, Drew Hansen, but tip of the cap, spot of tea. Where was I?
Where's the hole at?
I appreciate it, though. Working out. It was, however, surrounded by a high wall. Pardon me, I must sneeze. Not yet. It'll come here shortly.
Not yet.
It has ceased. Who had great power. I'm just gonna start over. Our first story for real this time is number 12. Rapunzel. You can't see the words. It's okay, you don't need to, I'll read it to you. There were once a man and a woman who had long in vain wished for a child. At length, the woman hoped that God was about to grant her desire. These people had a little window at the back of their house, from which a splendid garden could be seen, which was full of the most beautiful flowers and herbs. It was, however, surrounded by a high wall, and no one dared to go into it because it belonged to an enchantress named Dame Gothel, who had great power and was dreaded by all the world. One day, the woman, standing by this window and looking down into the garden, when she saw a bed which was planted with the most beautiful rampion, Rapunzel, and it looked so fresh and green that she longed for it and had the greatest desire to eat some. This desire increased every day and looked pale and miserable. Then her husband was alarmed and asked, "What ails you, dear wife?" "Ah," she replied, "if I can't get some of the rampion, which is in the garden behind our house, I shall die." The man who loved her thought, "Sooner than let your wife die, bring her some of the rampion yourself, let it cost you what it will." Lost my place, found it again. In the twilight of the evening, he clambered down over the wall into the garden of the enchantress, hastily clutched a handful of rampion, and took it to his wife. She at once made herself a salad of it, found it, and ate it with much delight. She, however, liked it so much, so very much, that the next day she longed for it 3 times as much as before. If he was to have any rest, her husband must once more descend into the garden in the gloom of evening. Therefore he let himself down again. But when he clambered over the wall, he was terribly afraid, for he saw the enchantress standing before him. "How can you dare," she said with an angry look, "to descend into my garden and steal my rampion like a thief? You shall suffer for it." "Ah," answered he, "let mercy take the place of justice. I only made up my mind to do it out of necessity. My wife saw your rampion from the window and felt such a longing for it that she would have died if she had not got to eat some." Then the enchantress allowed her anger to be softened and said to him, "If the case as you say, I will allow you to take away with you as much rampion as you will. Only I make one condition. You must give me the child which your wife will bring into the world. It shall be well treated, and I will care for it like a mother." The man in his terror consented to everything, and when the woman gave birth, the enchantress appeared at once, gave the child the name of Rapunzel, and took it away with her. Rapunzel grew into the most beautiful child beneath the sun. When she was 12 years old, the enchantress shut her into a tower, which lay in a forest, and had neither stairs nor door, but quite at the top was a little window. When the enchantress wanted to go in, she placed herself beneath it and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair to me!" Rapunzel had magnificent long hair, fine as spun gold, and when she heard the voice of the enchantress, she unfastened her braided tresses, wound them one of the hooks of the window above, and then the hair fell 20 ells down, and the enchantress climbed up by it. After a year or two, it came to pass that the king's son rode through the forest, and went by the tower. Then he heard a song, which was so charming that he stood still and listened. This was Rapunzel, who in her solitude passed her time in letting her sweet voice resound. The king's son wanted to climb up to her, and looked for the door of the tower, but none was to be found. He rode home, but the singing had so deeply touched his heart that every day he went out into the forest and listened to it. Once, when he was thus standing behind a tree, he saw that an enchantress came there, and he heard how she cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair!" Then Rapunzel let down the braids of her hair, and the enchantress climbed up to her. "If that is the ladder which one mounts, I will at once try my fortune," said he. And the next day, when it began to grow dark, he went to the tower and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair!" Immediately the hair fell down, and the king's son climbed up. At first, Rapunzel was terribly frightened when a man such as her eyes had never yet beheld came to her. But the king's son began to talk to her, quite like a friend, and told her that his heart had been so stirred that it had let him have no rest, and he had been forced to see her. Then Rapunzel lost on her fear, and when he asked her if she would take him for her husband, and she saw that he was young and handsome, she thought, "He will love me more than that old Dame Gothel does." And she said yes, and laid her hand in his. She said, "I will willingly go away with you, but I do not know how to get down. Bring with you a skein of silk every time that you come, and I will weave a ladder with it. And when that is ready, I will descend, and you will take me on your horse." They agreed that until the day came, that time he should come to her every evening, for the old woman came by day. The enchantress remarked nothing of this, until once Rapunzel said to her, "Tell me, Dame Gothel, how it happens that you are so much heavier for me to draw up the young king's son? He is with me in hardly a minute." "Ah, you wicked child!" cried the enchantress. "What do I hear you say? I thought I had separated you from all the world, and yet you have deceived me." In her anger, she clutched Rapunzel's beautiful tresses, wrapped them twice around her left hand, seized a pair of scissors with the right, "I don't have enough hands for this," and snip, snap, they were cut off, and the lovely braid lay on the ground. And she was so pitiless that she took poor Rapunzel into a desert, where she had to live in great grief and misery. On the same day that she cast out Rapunzel, the enchantress fastened the braids of hair which she had kept onto the hook of the window. And in the evening, when the king's son came and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair," she let down the hair. The king's son ascended, but he did not find his dearest Rapunzel above, but the enchantress, who gazed at him with wicked and venomous looks. "Aha!" she cried mockingly. "You would fetch your dearest, but the beautiful bird sits no longer singing in the nest. The cat has got it, and will scratch out your eyes as well. Rapunzel is lost to you. You will never see her more." Hi, Janessa. May I have a spot of tea? May I have a spot of tea? Thank you. Scrumptious.
Don't worry, I'm still fighting the mimic.
Where was I? For I so rudely got interrupted. The king's son was beside himself with pain, and in his despair he leapt down from the tower. He escaped with his life, but the thorns into which he fell pierced his eyes. Then he wandered quite blind about the forest, ate nothing but roots and berries, and did nothing but lament and weep over the loss of his dearest wife. Thus he roamed about in misery for some years, and at length came to the desert where Rapunzel, with the twins to which she had given birth, a boy and a girl, lived in a wretchedness. He heard a voice, and it seemed so familiar to him that he went towards it, and when he approached, Rapunzel knew him and embraced him and wept. 2 of her tears wetted his eyes, and they grew clear again, and he could see with them as before. He led her to his kingdom, where he was joyfully received, and they lived for a long time afterwards, happy and contented.
Woo! Woo!
Now, ladies and gentlemen, what did we learn from this story?
Nothing.
Don't steal from the witch that is your neighbor.
The story sucked.
Maybe don't steal from your neighbor, especially if she is a witch.
Love thy
That would
neighbor.
be bad. Love thy neighbor. It's the golden rule. Love thy neighbor.
Love thy neighbor.
The golden rule is to treat yourself.
Don't
Treat others like you want to be treated. That's the golden rule.
don't climb hair into towers.
No,
Or
that's
a
making
lady
you
will
better.
cut your eyeballs.
Or a lady will shove you out of a really tall tower, and you'll land in thorns, and you'll wander the forest until you make it to the desert where your wife. They never got married.
They did.
It's implied.
It's implied.
It was in the plot. You missed it.
My
You
apologies.
missed it during the bathroom trick.
Ah, yes, of course.
Did you even pay attention to the book you were reading?
Yes, I did.
Wow, you suck. Don't clap.
Our
Woo!
next story, if I shall find it,
If I can find it.
is a shorter one.
Is it?
It's quite. I've read it before.
Dude, there's a mimic.
Palmer's
watching that.
He's probably not.
Look
Our
at what
next
he
story,
thinks
number 26, Little Red Cap. You might be familiar with Little Red Riding
Legal
Hood.
formality.
Wrong! It's Little Red Cap.
What?
Not you. Talking to the audience. All 0 people watching. It's like I'm reading to a class of kindergartners.
Except they're not even kindergartners, they're just not there. You're just
I would
schizophrenic.
always listen.
You just walked out.
Number 26, Little Red Cap. Once upon a time, there was a dear girl who was loved by everyone, who looked at her, but most of... I'm not good at reading.
I can't read.
I am dyslexic. Once upon a time, there was a dear girl...
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time, there was a dear little girl who was loved by everyone who looked at her, but most of all by her grandmother, who there was nothing that she would not have given to that child. Once she gave her a little red cap of red velvet, which suited her so well that she would never wear anything else, so she was always called Little Red Cap. One day, her mother said to her, "Come, Little Red Cap, here's a piece of cake and a bottle of wine. Take them to your grandmother. She is ill and weak, and they will do her good. Set out before it gets hot, and when you are going, walk nicely and quietly, and do not run off the path, or you may die, and fall and break the bottle, and then your grandmother will get nothing, and when you get into her room, don't forget to say good morning, and don't peep into every corner before you do it." "I will take great care," said Little Red Cap to her mother, and gave her hand on it. The grandmother lived out in the wood, half a league from the village, and just as Little Red Cap entered the wood, a wolf met her. Little Red Cap did not know what a wicked creature he was, and was not afraid at all by him. "Good day, Little Red Cap," said he. "Thank you kindly, Wolf." "Where do you go so early, Little Red Cap?" "To my grandmother's." "What have you got in your apron?" "Cake and wine. Yesterday was baking day, so poor sick grandmother is to have something good to make her stronger." "Where does your grandmother live, Little Red Cap?" "A good quarter of a league farther on in the wood. A house stands under the large
the 3 large oak trees. The nut trees are just below. You surely must know of it.
Replied Little Red Cap. The wolf thought to himself, what a tender young creature. What a nice plump mouthful. She will be better to eat than the old woman. I must act craftily so as to catch both. So he walked for a short time by the side of Little Red Cap, and then he said, See, Little Red Cap, how pretty the flowers are about here. Why do you not look around? I believe, too, that you do not hear how sweetly the little birds are singing. You walk gravely along as if you were going to school, while every day out here in the wood is merry. Little Red Cap raised her eyes, and when she saw the sunbeams dancing here and there through the trees, and pretty flowers growing everywhere, she thought,
Suppose I take grandmother's a fresh nosegay. That would please her too. It is so early in the day that I shall still get there in good time.
And so she ran from the path into the wood to look for flowers. And whenever she had picked one, she fancied that she saw a still prettier one farther on, and ran after it. And so got deeper and deeper into the wood. Meanwhile, the wolves ran straight to the grandmother's house and knocked at the door. It's me knocking.
Who is there?
Little Red Cap, replied the wolf. She is bringing cake and wine. Open the door. That's my impression of the wolf pretending to be Little Red Cap. In case you couldn't piece that together.
By the way, you can use his keyboard like clear as day on the live stream.
Lift the latch.
Called out the grandmother.
Unavoidable
I am
problem,
too
but it's
weak
happening.
and cannot get up.
The wolf lifted the latch. The door flew open, and without saying a word, he went straight to the grandmother's bed and devoured her. Then he put on her clothes, dressed herself up in her cap, laid himself in bed, and drew the curtains. Little Red Cap, however, had been running about the picking flowers, and when she had gathered so many that she could carry no more, she remembered her grandmother and set out on her way to her. She was surprised to find the cottage door standing wide open, and when she went into the room, she had such a strange feeling that she said to herself, "Oh dear, how uneasy I feel today." That was not in Little Red's voice. Let me start over.
Oh dear, how uneasy I feel today. And at other times, I like being with grandmother so much.
She called out,
Good morning.
but received no answer. So she went to the bed and drew back the curtains, but received no answer. So she went to the bed and drew back the curtains. And I repeated myself, guys, it's okay.
It's not okay.
There lay her grandmother, with her cap pulled far over her face, and looking very strange.
Oh, grandmother,
She said,
what big ears you have.
"The better to hear you with, my child," was the reply.
But grandmother, what big eyes you have.
"The better to see you with, my dear."
But grandmother, what large hands you have.
"The better to hug you with."
Oh, but grandmother, what terrible big mouth you have.
"The better to eat you with." "Do you insult your grandmother like this every time you see her?" And scarcely had the wolf said this than with one bound, he was out of bed and swallowed up Little Red Cap, as if he was Foxy from Five Nights at Freddy's.
Is that in the story?
Yes.
Yep, it's written in here.
Can I see?
Nope. When the wolf had appeased his appetite, he lay down again in the bed, fell asleep, and began to snore very loud. The hunter was just passing the house and thought to himself, "How the old woman is snoring! I must see if she wants anything." So he went into the room, and when he came to the bed, he saw that the wolf was lying in it. "Do I find you here, you old sinner?" said he. "I have long sought you." Then, just as he was going to fire at him, it occurred to him that the wolf might have devoured the grandmother, and that she might
Is that a
still
thought
be
that comes
saved.
to everyone?
Yes.
So he did not fire, but took a pair of scissors and began to cut open the stomach of the sleeping wolf.
This is my favorite part.
When he made 2 snips, he saw the little red cap shining.
My favorite part of hit movie Hoodwink.
And then he made 2 snips more. And the little girl sprang out crying,
Ah, how frightened I have been! How dark it is inside the wolf!
and after the aged grandmother came out alive also, but scarcely able to breathe. Redcap, however, quickly fetched great stones with which they filled the wolf's body. And when he awoke, he wanted to run away, but the stones were so heavy that he fell down at once and fell dead.
Is that real?
Yes! Then all 3 were delighted. The hunter drew off the wolf's skin and went home with it. The grandmother ate the cake and drank the wine, which Redcap had brought her, and revived. But Redcap thought to herself,
As long as I live, I will never by myself leave the path to run into the wood when my mother has forbidden me to do so.
I sound like from the Game Grumps Doki Doki Literature Club video.
Sayori, bro.
Mhm.
I gently cut open the wolf.
I gently opened the door, and then my grandmother is in bed. Stop putting that on the screen! I will fight you!
I change the font every time.
It is also related that once when Redcap was again taking cakes to the old grandmother, another wolf spoke out to her and tried to entice her from the path. Redcap, however, was on her guard and went straight forward on her way and told her grandmother that she had met the wolf and that he said good morning to her, but with such a wicked look in his eyes that if they had not been on the public road, she was certain he would have eaten her up. Well, said the grandmother, we will shut the door, then he may not come in. Soon afterwards, the wolf knocked and cried, Open the door, grandmother, I am little Redcap, and I am fetching you some cakes. But they did not speak or open the door. So the grey beard stole twice or thrice around the house, and at last jumped on the roof, intending to wait until Redcap went home in the evening, but then to steal after her and devour her in the darkness. But the grandmother saw what was in his thoughts. She's a telepathic. In front of the house was a great stone trough. So she said to the child, Take the pail, Redcap. I made some sausages yesterday, so carry the water in which I boiled them to the trough. Redcap carried until the great trough was quite full. Then the smell of the sausages reached the wolf, and he sniffed and peeped down, and at last stretched out his neck so far that he could no longer keep his footing, and began to slip, and slipped down from the roof straight into the great trough, and drowned. But Redcap went joyously home, and never did anything to harm anyone. The end. Thank you for watching my Fireside Chats. I hope you have enjoyed the stream. I was your host, Evan Matheny. Today we listened to Rapunzel, and we learned Don't Steal from Your Witch Neighbor. And we read Little Red Cap, and we learned Wolves will trick you and try to eat you, but if you cut them open and fill them with stones and then drown them in a trough, they will leave you alone. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Tune in shortly for a Subnautica stream.